Steak. What am I going to do with that? Yep. Welcome to Eating Plebian. Quick one today. Steak nachos. I've got just underneath a pound of sirloin steak, bunch of Mexican shredded style cheese, sour cream, cherry tomatoes, lots of nacho chips, onions, salsa. I think I already did the salsa. Whatever. Let's get going. It occurs to me that in as much as a whole lot of people have not been given any sort of training during their youth or adolescence, college age, whatever, they haven't been given any sort of training in cooking. Now, when it comes to making nachos, you would think it would just kind of come naturally. I have learned from a lot of people that cooking even very basic and simple things is not exactly in their domain. So I'm going to be running through this real quick, not so much to say this is what you got to do to make nachos, because taking some chips, melting some cheese over it, whatever, I think that would occur to most people. What it doesn't cover is the fact there's more to it than just literally dumping it in a pan and shoving it in the oven for a couple of minutes. Because in order to make nachos actually really good, is you have to space them out, you have to curate them almost. You're gonna go from bite for bite, and what you're gonna do is make sure that the largest amount of the nachos that you're making have equal amounts of the onions and tomatoes and the meat and the cheese and everything else that's going into the dish, in order to make them really kind of pleasurable. Have you ever had a kind of a bad, or just a, shall we say, a non-committal attempt at nachos, and everyone starts piling on trying to get to the stuff with all the cheese and the good stuff in the middle, and everyone ignores the ones around the rest? It's just kind of a pain in the butt. So along with my theory that it's more of an organizational issue and more of a detail issue than it is one of the components. So we're going to take just a little bit of time here to create the nachos and make them kind of something special. Believe it or not, as simple as nachos are, this is one of the most requested dishes in my house. Usually it's because it's midweek. You're busy, you got stuff going on. Sitting down to a 3 or a 4 item meal is not exactly on your radar. So, I mean, I get that. So what I'm going to kind of impress upon you, it's not even so much what you're making, it's how you make it. So I've got my, that's a roughly about 4 to 5 ounces of cherry tomatoes that I've quartered up. If I had any actual beefsteak tomatoes, I probably would have used those. I would have seeded them first. You don't want a lot of that gel that's on the inside, as good as it tastes, on nachos, because as soon as you heat them up, what happens is that that stuff liquefies and it makes your chips soggy. So anyways, this is from the other night. Got about a medium here, and I'm just going to chop this up into distinct pieces. I think it's going to do us well, and then I'm going to nuke it for about 20 to 30 seconds. As I said, this is kind of a speed run as well. Now, nuking steak typically isn't what you really want to do. It'll make it tough if you do it for any period of time. But basically, just getting a little warm up on them is fine. You're not trying to cook them or reheat them to last night's dinner status. So we're going to, play a little loose, but knowing why those rules are there. That's a fatty one. I'll move that off to the side. We don't want just big blocks of fat sitting on our chips. So we're halfway done there. This was the one that was cooked deeper because my significant other actually prefers over medium when it comes to beef. So, yes, I love her anyway. She's going to kill me for that one. All right, so I'm almost done with this. I need to do my oven, so get that rolling. And so I'm going to set this over here just off camera, 350 degrees. So that's getting warm. You already saw me pick out the chips. We are going to halfway painstakingly arrange them so we have a nice single and nearly uniform non-covering over layer of chips so the heat can get to them evenly across the pan. So we'll do a second layer on top of that, but you'll note also that it's not wall to wall. We need to allow the air from the inside of the oven to be able to circulate amongst those chips. You can have, a lot of melted cheese around the outside, and the inside, especially if anything that's underneath, well, that's kind of unmelted. It's just not satisfactory. Give me another second. I'm going to knock out the rest of my prep here, since I've had stuff to talk about, and I'll be back with you in just a second. All right, after a minute in the microwave, they're no worse for wear. Still pink where it was still pink. That's tasty. I've got a half bag of tortilla chips, and I'm simply going to arrange these out. I'm not assembling these nachos, I'm curating them. I'm going to discard smaller, broken, useless ones down to a certain degree. That doesn't mean they have to be entirely intact, but I do want there to be enough to act as a basis for the toppings that we're going to be placing on. Anything that is slightly concave or bowl-shaped, those are going to get pointed with the centers down low so that they can actually hold on to whatever it is that I put in them. Note that I am not stacking over top of each other. I know this looks like a really long process, but it's really not that bad. So I'm going to get these all on here as best I can. Arrange. A few more. I don't have any more. Give me one more large one. There we go. Okay, so we've got that. I'm going to start off now. I'm not going to be coming in here with tweezers. That's just silly. But I want to get at least a couple of pieces of each of the toppings on each one of these things. So why it makes a difference, I don't know, but it really does seem to. My family says that, now they could easily be biased, and I'm willing to consider that. You don't know how much I'm willing to consider that, but they say that I make the best nachos of any place, including any restaurants that they've been to, all the rest, which is a really nice compliment. Get a couple there on the inside of these rolled over ones. All right. I'm going to be a little more sparing with the tomatoes because I only have so many. And I want to make a second layer if at all possible. So if there's any really tiny chips, I'm going to skip them just to make sure that I have enough. I think I probably will, though, now that I'm looking at my bowl, and I just dumped all those off. Such a pain, such a pain. That's okay. But see, the thing is that labor is repaid when it comes to cooking. I've said it before, but preparation makes the product. And having a little more prep time, taking a little bit more of your attention makes a really big difference when it comes to what hits the table. So a couple more of those. Fine. All right. Now I've got lots of steak here, so I don't have to be reasonable when it comes with a steak because I have plenty. And so I'm going to drop these on. Now I'm going to make a second layer as well. It's going to take me a couple minutes to do that. So you see what I'm doing here. I'll get you back in just a second. All right, so I got the steak back on. Now I'm going for the first layer of cheese. As much as I would really love to say just absolutely layer and cake that on, the problem is in creating that layer, it blocks the amount of airflow that is going down in from the oven and actually baking the rest of the contents of your nachos. So be a little sparing. Definitely put on as much cheese as you like, and indeed, I'm not the boss of you. If you want to go ahead and use 2 cups of cheese on one layer, you go right on and do it, and more power to you and respect. But I think this is going to be plenty for a layer. And now I'm going to go and make my second layer. Now these will be, you'll note, a little bit looser on top because I just want to make sure that everything gets cooked in underneath. So I'm sorting through this bag. I actually slid it open. It was getting toward the end anyway. And I am loosely placing them around. And then we're going to go through the entire process again. Does it have to be perfect? I'm talking about all this, excuse me, Texas allergies again. I'm talking about all this time invested in making something perfect. But no, it's not making something perfect because the effort itself simply will be recognized. Also, these are nachos, for crying out loud. We are not going for a Le Cordon Bleu preparatory exam or something along these lines. This is dinner. So let's not worry about, there's tomatoes missing on that piece. I can almost see that happening. We just want to make the best dinner possible in as much time as is reasonable, not as is possible. Otherwise, we're never going to sit down to eat. So I'm going to go ahead now and finish off the topping on this second layer. And we'll be ready to go in and get things put into the oven. And a few minutes later, I've got my composition here. So I'm going to put this in the oven. It's at 350, and I'm going to put it in there for between 12 and 14, 15 minutes. So into the gaping maw of the inferno it goes. Check my clock so I know how long to go. Yes. And lastly, I want to add something nice and green and fresh there. So I've got some parsley here off to the side. I just like to rip the leaves off by hand and then chop them up. So there's some. I'll get rid of the big stems. Simply, it just looks nicer. And you think, well, okay, it's just garnish. You don't have to do the garnish. But the whole point is appealing to the senses. You're focusing on the taste, which absolutely is the primary motivation when you're talking about food and cooking. Secondary is smell, but your eyes do a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to deciding whether or not something is tasty or appealing or anything like that. So the next time that you're wondering if whether or not you want to, spend just another 60 seconds or so and making something look nice. And this does fold back into that hole. We're not assembling nachos, we're curating them. So, but the whole thing is that get more senses involved, people will remember it. Now, I wish I had some scallions. I looked around, I didn't have any. At least I didn't have any that I considered usable. So that's why I'm using the parsley. But because we're doing steak, this will be perfectly fine. And I also like parsley because this, nice emerald green, it shows up well. No other reason. All right, we'll be back as soon as those nachos come out of the oven. All right, 14 minutes later, let's see what we've got. Yes, we have nachos, and it looks just like you're supposed to. The cheese, I can see underneath here to the second layer, has melted on appropriately. So we're going to add on that parsley that I was just talking about. I feel the need to run through just an item or two for the ingredient list if it's not particularly clear. I used half a party-sized bag of tortilla chips, and we had 4 to 5 ounces of cherry tomatoes that I quartered up, just under a pound of sirloin steak that I had left over, cooked to any desired doneness that you want for yourselves. 1/2 an onion and 2 cups of cheese. That is the shredded type. And there we go. We've got some really festive, party-looking nachos, and I guarantee you this is going to satisfy anybody. Serve them with some sour cream, salsa, or however you'd like, but these are hitting the table. So we're going to go ahead and start eating. So thanks for spending a few minutes with us here at Eating Plebian, where I wanted to share this recipe for the nachos. It's really not even so much a recipe for the nachos, as more as it is a philosophy, and not just for the nachos, but how much care that you take into making almost anything, and that applies for far more than cooking as well. Do me a favor. Hit the like and the subscribe buttons for me. We're still a new channel, and hitting those buttons has actual benefits in terms of getting the return content that you like back to you, but it also helps me getting mine out to the other people that I really think could use it. There's a whole lot of people that haven't been taught to cook, or even just to be able to help themselves, restaurant and takeout money. Absolutely huge, especially when you consider the amount of people that are kind of scrabbling these days. Anyways, thanks very much, and I'll catch you next time.